Welcome to CVR English News. In a rapidly evolving global landscape, significant developments are shaping international relations and economic prospects. From escalating tensions between Canada and India to remarkable economic strides in Asia, the world is witnessing a dynamic interplay of politics and commerce. Today's bulletin covers key highlights, including the impact of diplomatic disputes, market movements, and ambitious initiatives from India. Let's get into the details. Let's take a look at the America. Wall Street ended higher on Monday, with both the S&P 500 and the Dow posting fresh record finishes as investors brought into technology stocks ahead of a busy week packed with corporate earnings and crucial economic data. On its somewhat subdued for day trading, given bond markets were shut due to the federal holiday, just 9.55 billion shares changed hands versus the 12.05 billion shares which moved on average over the last 20 trading days. However, there was an upward momentum carried over from Friday when major banks kicked off the third quarter corporate earnings season on a positive note. To send the Dow Jones Industrial Average (DJI) opens new tab above 43,000 points for the first time, with 41 S&P 500 companies expected to report results this week, and this flood of new data points from corporate America will help investors assess the health of the U.S. economy and whether companies can continue to justify stretched stock market valuations.
Monday brought more fresh record closing highs for the Dow and S&P 500 and for shares of NVIDIA. World's most The S&P gained roughly 0.75%, and the Nasdaq climbed nearly 0.9%. An index of semiconductor companies jumped 1.8% to a more than 2-month high, also aided by a nearly 7% gain in shares of ARM holdings. Mega-cap tech names also jumped, including Alphabet, Microsoft, and Tesla.
Well, what is very interesting is that the trends haven't really changed.
Melissa Brown, Managing Director of Investment Decision Research at SimCorp, said that despite the start of rate cuts by the Federal Reserve, which should benefit small and mid-cap companies, big tech stocks are still leading the charge.
Stocks that have done well continue to do well. Stocks that have done poorly continue to do poorly. So it's interesting that we haven't really seen a change in trends, even though we did get this big Fed action during the quarter. And I think that is probably because that Fed action was largely anticipated. And so even, going into the quarter, or even, going back quite a few months, the expectation was that the Fed would cut rates. The Fed cut rates. So things are just continuing on the same path.
Movers to the downside included Caterpillar, which dropped 2% following a brokerage downgrade. And Boeing fell 1.3% after the plane maker flagged a larger than expected third quarter loss on Friday. Earnings season heads into full swing this week, with investors also keeping an eye out for crucial economic data, including September retail sales figures. Monday brought more fresh record closing highs for the Dow and S&P 500 and for shares of NVIDIA, putting the AI chip leader on the brink of dethroning Apple as the world's most valuable company. The Dow gained about 0.5%, the S&P gained roughly 0.75%, and the Nasdaq climbed nearly 0.9%. An index of semiconductor companies jumped 1.8% to a more than 2-month high, also aided by a nearly 7% gain in shares of ARM holdings. Mega-cap tech names also jumped, including Alphabet, Microsoft, and Tesla.
Well, what is very interesting is that the trends haven't really changed.
Melissa Brown, Managing Director of Investment Decision Research at SimCorp, said that despite the start of rate cuts by the Federal Reserve, which should benefit small and mid-cap companies, big tech stocks are still leading the charge.
Stocks that have...
Coming to Asia, Tokyo Metro 9023.T opens new tab raised 348.6 billion yen. $2.3 billion in Japan's largest initial public offering in 6 years after pricing its IPO at the top of its range, a regulatory filing from the companies showed on Tuesday. The IPO was more than 15 times oversubscribed, said two sources familiar with the matter, as many investors were drawn by a household name and the firm's attractive dividend yield. The company priced the shares at 1,200 yen apiece, compared with a range of 1,100 to 1,200 yen. It is expected to list the Tokyo Stock Exchange on October 23.
The Tokyo Metro is set to raise $2.3 billion in an upcoming share listing. That's according to Reuters sources. They say the urban rail network has priced its IPO at the top of a planned range. The sources say that comes after the offer was more than 15 times oversubscribed. Investors were reportedly attracted by the prospect of robust dividend payments. Retail investors were among those to prove keen, with the Metro a household name in Japan's capital. Shares available to institutional investors were even more in demand though, oversubscribed by as much as 30 times. There was no comment on the report from the company. Japan's government currently owns a little more than half of the Metro, with the rest owned by Tokyo's city government. The pair are now selling half their shares in the IPO. If it goes ahead as expected, the offering will be Japan's biggest since SoftBank listed its telecoms unit in 2018. The central government plans to use the proceeds to pay back special bonds issued after the country's 2011 earthquake and tsunami. Last month, the Metro company said the listing would take place on October 23rd. The Tokyo Metro is set to raise $2.3 billion in an upcoming share listing. That's according to Reuters sources. They say the
Michael Kogelman, director of South Asia Institute at the Wilson Center, expressed skepticism about the prospects for the India-Canada relationship, stating it is hard to be optimistic. He noted that the bilateral ties have been deteriorated significantly since Prime Minister Trudeau's allegations of assassination last year. The withdrawal of India's High Commissioner to Canada has further escalated tensions, leading to a downward spiral in diplomatic relations. Kogelman highlighted the contrasting perspectives of both nations, with India asserting that Canada is harboring extremists, while Canada maintains that it is acting within its rights. He emphasized that at this point, the hope should be that the situation does not worsen further.
I think that it's hard to be optimistic about this relationship righting itself, so to speak. We know that it's been in a particularly bad state for more than a year since Trudeau leveled the allegation of the assassination last year. We have seen some concessions on both sides over the last year, but I think that what happened on Monday is really it really amounts to the relationship stepping up many rungs of the escalation ladder. And the higher you go up, the harder it's going to be to get down, particularly because both sides have really dug in on their respective positions, right? I mean, India feels that it's completely in the right in terms of its view that Canada is harboring extremists, and Canada believes that it is right in its view that it's doing nothing wrong. And that's, I think that these uncompromising positions tend to be more common when you really don't have much sense that things are going to be getting better in the relationship, or that they could be getting better. So in that sense, I think that the best we can hope for this relationship in the coming weeks and perhaps even the coming months is not that things will get better, but more so that they don't get worse. I think that
Council Elders Matthew Panos exercised India's right of reply against Pakistan at the joint general debate on decolonization and cornered it for sponsoring cross-border terrorism.
That a country which is infamous across the globe for state-sponsored terrorism and transnational crimes casts aspersions on the world's largest democracy. It's a fact that Fourth Committee have limited expectations from Pakistan and their ability to contribute towards working of the committee. Unsubstantiated allegations by Pakistan largely pertain to the Union territories of Jammu and Kashmir and Ladakh. India would like to reiterate that Jammu and Kashmir and Ladakh are, were, and will be an integral and inalienable part of India. India symbolizes pluralism, diversity, and democracy. Pakistan reminds the world of terrorism, parochialism, and persecution. Facts speak for themselves. Lies are lies, even if they are repeated over and over by Pakistan. Madam Chair, I am compelled to take the floor to exercise India's right of reply, since Pakistan continues to abuse this august forum by peddling falsehoods and baseless accusations. Given Pakistan's past conduct, this is, however, not surprising. It is ironic that a country which is infamous across the globe for state-sponsored terrorism and transnational crimes cast aspersions on the world's largest democracy. It has been Pakistan's consistent state policy to employ cross-border terrorism as a weapon against its neighbors. The list of attacks orchestrated by Pakistan is indeed long. In India, they have targeted our parliament, marketplaces, and pilgrimage routes, among several others. Normal Indian citizens have been victims of such dastardly and inhumane acts by Pakistan. Madam Chair, it's a fact that Fourth Committee have limited expectations from Pakistan and their ability to contribute towards working of the committee because of their nefarious designs and decades of established practice of harboring and aiding.
Assistant Commissioner Royal Canadian Mounted Police Brigade Gowan on October 14 alleged that Indian government have links with the Bishnoi group. Following this, she said that they are specifically targeting pro-Khalistani elements in Canada. India is targeting South Asian community, but they are specifically targeting pro-Khalistani elements in Canada. What we have seen is, from an RCMP perspective, they use organized crime elements. It has been publicly attributed and claimed by one organized crime group, in particular, Bishnoi Group. We believe that the group is connected to agents of the Government of India, says Brigade Gowan, Assistant Commissioner, Federal Policing, National Security. On Royal Canadian Mounted Police, the tension came after Canada made absurd motivated allegations against India over alleged involvement in acts of violence. India on October 14 lodged a strong protest against Canada and summoned Canadian diplomat in Delhi. After being summoned, Canadian Charge d'Affaires Stewart Wheeler visited the Ministry of External Affairs, and a recent provocation, Canadian government said that Indian High Court and other diplomats are persons of interest in a matter related to an investigation. Following Ottawa's recent move, Indian government strongly rejected Canadian allegations.
It is targeting the South Asian community, but what we've seen is there's specific targeting of pro-Khalistan elements in Canada. The use of organized crime elements, and I will say, and it's been publicly attributed and claimed by one organized crime group in particular, which is the Bishnoi Group. That's what we're seeing here in Canada. And we believe that that group is connected to agents of the government of India.
We just heard today that India is targeting, using the terminology I'll share, the South Asian diaspora. To be more specific, is the main target of transnational repression or foreign interference and organized crime, including what we just heard, extortions, actually the Sikh Canadian community?
So yes, I mean, it is targeting the South Asian community, but what we've seen is there's specific targeting of pro-Khalistan elements in Canada, or members of the pro-Khalistan movement.
And just for the follow-up, when we're talking about extortions, organized crime being used, we within the community have seen that folks that have been targeted in these incidents are not just people that are linked to the Khalistan movement or the Sikh self-determination movement. Are you able to share that the transnational repression occurring right now is going beyond just Sikhs connected to the Khalistan movement in some shape or form?
just in order to preserve the integrity of the investigations that are being conducted by our police or jurisdiction partners, I won't be providing any further details in regards to the specificity of those investigations. But what we've seen is from an RCMP perspective, is the use of organized crime elements, and I will say and it's been publicly attributed and claimed by one organized crime group in particular, which is the Devotional group. So that's what we're seeing here in Canada. And we believe that that group is connected to agents of the government of India. It is targeting the South Asian community, but what we've seen is
the RCMP Commissioner had previously mentioned clear and compelling evidence indicating that agents of the Government of India have engaged in activities posing a significant threat to public safety. He outlined that these activities include clandestine information gathering techniques and coercive behavior targeting South Asian Canadians, as well as involvement in various threatening and violent acts, including murder, which he deemed unacceptable. Trudeau noted that while the RCMP and national security officials had attempted to collaborate with the Government of India and its law enforcement counterparts, their efforts had been consistently met with refusal. He explained that in response, Canadian officials took the extraordinary step of meeting with Indian officials to present the RCMP's evidence, which identified 6 agents of the Government of India as persons of interest in criminal activities. He emphasized that despite repeated requests for cooperation, the Government of India had chosen not to engage.
As the RCMP Commissioner stated earlier, they have clear and compelling evidence that agents of the Government of India have engaged in and continue to engage in activities that pose a significant threat to public safety. This includes clandestine information gathering techniques, coercive behavior targeting South Asian Canadians, and involvement in over a dozen threatening and violent acts, including murder. This is unacceptable. While attempts have been made by the RCMP and national security officials to work with the Government of India and Indian law enforcement counterparts on this matter, they have been repeatedly refused. This is why, this weekend, Canadian officials took an extraordinary step. They met with Indian officials to share RCMP evidence which concluded 6 agents of the Government of India are persons of interest in criminal activities. And despite repeated requests to the Government of India, it has decided not to cooperate. Let me be clear. The evidence brought to light by the RCMP cannot be ignored. It leads to one conclusion. It is necessary to disrupt the criminal activities that continue to pose a threat to public safety in Canada. That is why we acted. Because we will always, first and foremost, stand for the rights of Canadians to feel safe and secure in their own country. We will never tolerate the involvement of a foreign government threatening and killing Canadian citizens on Canadian soil, a deeply unacceptable violation of Canada's sovereignty and of international law. I know the events of the past year and today's revelations have shaken many Canadians, particularly those in the Indo-Canadian and Sikh community. Many of you are angry.
Canadian journalist Daniel Boatman spoke to media about the Government of India's decision to withdraw its High Commissioner and other targeted diplomats and officials from Canada. He expressed that a vast majority of Canadians are increasingly frustrated with the current government. Boatman pointed out that the elements within the Khalistani movement are very active and are treating the situation as a victory over criticizing India. He mentioned that Justin Trudeau is scheduled to speak later that day, but reiterated that many Canadians have lost faith in government institutions, view the media as lacking credibility, and do not see Trudeau as trustworthy. Boatman suggested that many Canadians might simply shrug off the situation and even align themselves with India.
Canadian media is all funded by Justin Trudeau now and the Liberals. If you watch Canadian mainstream media, you're just going to think, oh wow, Justin Trudeau is taking it to foreign interference or whatever it is they tell you. But the vast majority of Canadians are incredibly fed up with this government. In Canada, this hasn't really hit the news yet because this comes out on Thanksgiving. Canadian Thanksgiving is when this drops, so it's a long weekend. Also keep in mind, Canada, there are much bigger scandals and stories that this is sort of overshadowing. Justin Trudeau is in the middle of a caucus revolt where when he went away, a group of Liberal MPs signed a petition to get him to resign, and according to them, the signatures spilled onto a second page. We're also in the midst of a massive Chinese foreign interference scandal where the Liberal government's excuse is basically, we don't know where we are, we don't know who we are. Literally, we do not know how to read, so that's why we're not guilty of foreign interference, because all this stuff the government, the security agent tries to warn us about, it was fruitless because we don't know how to read words. So this is where the Liberal Party is right now. Now, there are elements within the Khalistani apparatus, they're all over this. Jagmeet Singh's all over this, his brother, Sukh Dhaliwal, who's likely the one who wrote the letter to bring in Hardip Singh Nijjar into the country. They're all going full bore. So the Khalistani elements are in full attack mode. They're taking this as a total victory, and slamming India. In terms of the rest of the Canadian media, again, we're on a holiday Monday. So there really hasn't been a response from Canadian media. I think Justin Trudeau is set to speak later today. I think you'll start to see some stories leaking out tonight, and then by tomorrow, I think you'll get a narrative from the Canadian media. However, keep in mind, Canadian media is all funded by Justin Trudeau now and the Liberals, so it's all effectively state media at this point. So expect them to sort of just toe the government line here. So we live in it's a classic modern situation where everyone lives in their own little world. So if you're a Khalistani extremist, you're very happy. If you watch Canadian
Senior Canadian journalists have expressed deep concerns regarding the Indo-Canadian community amid the escalating diplomatic tensions between India and Canada. Journalist Tahir Gora remarked that Indo-Canadians are shocked and distressed by the news of deteriorating relations, particularly noting that India has called back its diplomats in response to allegations that some may be the persons of interest in the murder of Nijjar. He highlighted the bewilderment within the community, comparing the current situation unfavorably to Canada's relationships with other countries such as China and Russia, which have not reached such low despite significant tensions. Gora pointed out that many Indo-Canadians are particularly upset about the impact on the approximately 60,000 Indian students facing deportation. He expressed a general sense of shock over the deteriorating relationship between the two democracies, questioning how it could have reached such a critical point. Journalist Halima Sadia echoed these sentiments, describing the situation as saddening and distressing, and she noted that the unhealthy diplomatic relations have created challenging circumstances for Canadians with ties to India, making travel and maintaining connections difficult. Sadia emphasized that the current climate is stressful for all Canadians, particularly those who feel a strong connection to both countries.
People of both countries are facing very challenging situation because of unhealthy diplomatic relations between both the countries.
शौक में हूँ कि कैसे दोनों देशों के तल्लुकात जो कि दोनों बड़ी डेमोक्रेसीज हैं ख़राब होते चले जा रहे हैं। मेरे साथ बहुत सारे इंडो कैनेडियंस ने बातचीत की और उन्होंने कहा कि इतने बुरे तल्लुकात तो कनाडा और चाइना के भी नहीं हुए, इतने बुरे तल्लुकात तो रूस और कनाडा के बीच में भी नहीं हुए, जबकि कनाडा यूक्रेन में अपनी पूरी मदद भेज रहा है। इस वक्त 60-70 हज़ार इंडियन स्टूडेंट्स डेपुटेशन फेस कर रहे हैं।
I feel like it's very, very saddening, distressing and stressful situation for all the Canadians.
क्या कनाडा के प्राइम मिनिस्टर जस्टिन ट्रूडो की अपनी लाइकिंग या डिसलाइकिंग की वजह से कुछ ये बात और बिगड़ती चली जा रही है? इस सारी सिचुएशन में अब 1.5 से 2 मिलियन इंडो कैनेडियंस जिनको दोनों देशों से बहुत प्यार है, उनको भारत से भी बहुत प्यार है।
India and Canada's ties have been at all-time low as both countries are at loggerheads over Trudeau's absurd claims. Canada continues to make absurd, motivated allegations against India for alleged involvement in acts of violence. Canadian government said that Indian High Court and other diplomats are persons of interest in a matter related to an investigation. Modi government called the accusation ascribed to the political agenda of Trudeau government focused on vote bank politics. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau discussed recent developments with UK Prime Minister Starmer to seek support against India. Justin Trudeau accused India of possible involvement in killing of Khalistani terrorist Hardeep Singh Nijjar on Canadian soil. However, Canada since September 2023 hasn't been able to provide any evidence to support its baseless, motivated claims. Terrorist Hardeep Nijjar was shot and killed in June 2023 by two masked gunmen outside a Sikh temple he led in Surrey, British Columbia.
Will remain anchored in it. That's what we did as a country.
Let's take a look at the Middle East. Smoke billows and sound of explosions ring out as Israeli strikes hit several southern Lebanese villages near the border. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu vowed to hit Hezbollah without mercy after the Iran-backed Lebanese group's deadliest strike on Israel since the start of the war in late September. Well, coming to Africa, President Draupadi Murmu addresses the Algerian-Indian Economic Forum on October 14. Draupadi Murmu highlighted India's rapid rise in today's uncertain global environment, noting that the country is currently a 4 trillion economy. And she emphasized the impressive progress made in recent years, attributing it to political stability, predictable policies, and a reform-oriented economic agenda that has improved the case of doing business. Murmu mentioned that India has maintained a sustained growth rate of 8% and pointed out initiatives like the Production-Linked Incentive Scheme, the India Semiconductor Mission, and the establishment of 12 smart industrial cities, which have created new opportunities. She also referred to various reforms aimed at boosting the manufacturing sector, including the goods and services tax, which has simplified the process for businesses to establish and expand in India. Additionally, she invited Algerian companies to participate in the Make India and the Make the World initiatives. Murmu expressed that India has achieved significant accomplishments in areas such as science and technology, fintech, pharmaceuticals, space, startups, and renewables, and offered to share India's experiences in these fields with Algerian partners.
It's easy for businesses to establish and grow in India. I invite Algerian companies to join our Make in India and Make for the World initiative.
Well, as the global events unfold, the ramifications of these developments are sure to resonate across borders, influencing everything from economic policies to international relations. The response of nations and communities in the face of these challenges will be crucial in shaping the future landscape. Stay tuned for further updates as we continue to monitor these critical issues around the world. This is Shekina signing off, and I will see you next time. Until then, keep watching CVR English.